Page 20, stretching out. At the top of the page, there on page 20, they're talking about a thing called a motif. Simply put, a motif is just a really short group of notes. That's it, a short group of notes. We usually think of it as part of a melody, a little piece of a melody. And they show you some examples, and I'm going to use their labels. There's other labels for these, I'm not going to get into it. But on measure 1, you have a motif, and they call it motif 1 because it's the first motif to be presented in the piece. And it's simple enough, and we're talking right hand, we're talking melody is here. So that's the motif. By itself, doesn't make up much of a melody, but it can be used as part of a melody. You can do stuff with it, you can add stuff with it, which is what they did in measure 2. It's called an extension of that motif, is here. Then they go back and you're doing the first motif again, and then another extension. It's not quite the same as the first extension, doesn't have to be. It's just a slight variation of it. It's kind of neat, but when you put the whole thing together, then you have a melody. The first line, now keep in mind, we would probably play this in more of a jazz style or a blues style, so we would swing the eighth notes, so it would be. But that has nothing to do with our discussion of motifs and stuff, so I'm just going to play it exactly as written for now, and we'll do the swinging stuff in the play with me part. So in the second line, we get the motif again, and an extension, same as the first line, and then they put an ending on it. And this is something else that kind of goes along with it, but kind of wraps it all up, and it could be anything you want. It's just, well, and keep in mind a motif doesn't have to be one measure. It could be part of a measure. It could be more than one measure. It's just a short collection of notes. Don't let the length say, okay, it's one measure, that's a motif has to be one measure. That's not correct. Now, go down to the third line. You have to take the pickup beat, a measure 9. The pickup beats are on the previous line, and the whole thing together is a motif. Right there. Then a little bit later, you get the motif again. Then you get the extension of the motif. Then the motif again. Then you get the a motif, slight variation. It's an eighth note instead of a quarter note, because now we're going to use this as a connecting note or a passing note onto the ending. It's not the same as the ending we had before, but it's an ending. It's all it is. And that B flat is just kind of connecting them. You can add all the little notes in there. It just flourishes. And as you tend to go through it and you're jamming and you're playing around with it, you will add other notes and experiment and say, well, can I add this note? Let's just add some eighth notes in here and see what happens. Up on page 21, on measure 17, we get the motive again. Now this is a different motif. This is actually, this is the third motif, because the first one was in the first measure. The second one was measure 9, the pickup to measure 9. Well, here we have a third motif, measure 17. And then an extension. And then they're telling you it's empty, you fill it in. And they're telling you basically what to fill in, what to play. Up above they're saying do motif 3 and its extension. You repeat them. So you're just going to take the first two measures and play them again. So here you're going to take measure 17, 18 and play them again. Oh, okay. Just hang in there. It's just and that would go into here in the blank spot. And I'll explain more about the blank spots in a minute. Just follow me along with what we're doing here for now. Then in the second line on page 21, we got the motif again. This is the third motif. And then an ending to it. Now we got some more blank stuff. Now they want you to do the motif 3 again. And the ending repeated 8VA. That's up here. So now instead of here, we're going to go here. So then we're going to do the third motif and the ending. Then we go back down here and to do the motif 2. Recognize that? Etc., 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 and some more on motif 2 and extensions and endings. And if you're going to improvise and you want to get into this in jamming session, you need to kind of understand what they're doing here, and they're just introducing you to this. If it's really new, don't worry about it too much. Just try and understand, okay, we have this music, this arrangement of notes at the beginning. We'll call it a motif. And we're going to use this in various places. And then as you get into jamming, you will actually start varying it. So, for instance, there in the first measure here, that's the basic motif, but I can play variations of that by adding other notes. Just playing around with it. Just play, there's variations of it. And when you're jamming, this is the kind of thing you're going to do. You don't know what you're playing for sure until you play it. And that's part of the fun of jamming. You just don't know what's going to come out. You're experimenting, so to speak. And then other people will also be in there. You have guitar players and drummers, and they're all jamming too, and everybody's doing their own thing. And who knows what it sounds like. Nobody's really listening that closely. You're just having a lot of fun. And that's what it's about. The left hand is just supporting it. It's providing you have a walking bass thing, type thing through it. And then in the third line on page 20, the bass kind of gets involved, because if I put the two hands together, starting with pick up to measure 9, and the right hand, it's here. When you get into it, it's going to take some practice though, because the hands are doing different things, and so you may have to go really, really slow. When we do the play with me, I'm going to go really, really slow, so you can try it out. Now, at the bottom of page 21, there's a DC Alfine. DC means go back to the beginning. Hopefully you know that by now. Alfine, go to Fine. Fine is toward the end of the second line on page 20. You'll see the Fine with the thin and thick bar lines signifying the end of the piece. Yeah? Okay. So let's try this out slowly and see what happens. Just to check the notes and the rhythms and things. Now you can play with this afterward and start trying to vary things. To vary the motifs, vary the extensions, change them up a little bit. Change the ending, experiment. This is where your imagination starts coming in, because if you just look at notes and you're lost, you don't know what to do. If you have to memorize the motif, it's not hard, it's just a measure, and then get away from the music and think, what other kind of things can I do with this? How can I change this up? You can change the rhythm, you can add notes, you can change the dynamics, you can take notes away. It's up to you what you want to do. Don't change it too much, or it's not that motif anymore. It's something else. But the idea is it's up to you and your imagination to have fun with it. And I would encourage you on your own in this piece, play around with this, enjoy this piece, and experiment with it and see what kind of things you can do. You don't have to play it there. Play it in a different part of the piano. It's like the one is AVA of those two measures. You can do other stuff too. Now the tempo for this is marked moderately slow. You'll have to decide what that means. It's sort of slow. Probably a tempo about like so. Idea how fast it might go, but you'll have to pick your own speed. How fast do you think it? Just don't play it real fast, and don't play it real slow. It's sort of in the middle, sort of. I'll give us 4 counts. Let's try this out very slowly, just to check the notes and the rhythms of the stuff that's here. By the way, I'm going to swing the eighth notes now, because now we're going to kind of turn it into more of a jazzy feel. 1, 2, and ready, and go, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 3, 1, and 2. Rest. To the beginning. There's an acoustic jamming thing at the bottom, so we can actually do a duet. Or if you have somebody else who plays piano, they can play along with you. Now, if you're going to have somebody play with you and you're on the same keyboard, then you got to move your stuff up an octave out of the way. So instead of here, at the beginning, you go up here. Just pretend middle C instead of here is here on the keyboard. Just pretend that's middle C, and you play everything up. Now that means when you get over to measures 23 and 24, when the right hand goes up an octave, you got to go up here to do that. Etc. So be aware of that. That way you stay out of the way and it sounds better. You're not really in, well, you are in the way sort of the stuff going on in the duet part at the bottom, because it's down here. It's going to provide a nice bass for you. And you play it together. I'm going to do this bottom part now, and you can play your part with me if you want. Just so you can hear what it sounds like. So I'll give us 4 counts. Let's try this out together. Now I sped the metronome up because we want them more like a performance here. So try and do the performance part. That means following the dynamics and all that stuff. There's not a lot of difference in dynamics, just an MP and an MF here, a little louder and softer. But really, when you're jamming and doing things, the dynamics is pretty much up to you. What do you want to do? How do you feel it? So do what you want. You know, improvise. When you change dynamics on purpose, you're improvising. So hands, you put your hands here. I suggest even playing with me here, you go ahead and move it up an octave because it'll sound better here. Because I'm down here. That type of thing, and it'll sound better if our parts are further apart. But that's up to you. Experiment, try both ways and see what you think. I'll give us 4 counts. Let's try this. Put your hands where they go. All right. 1, 2, and ready, and go. 3, 4. Rest. 2, 3, 4. Rest. 2, 3, 4.